Some people walk through fire and come out untouched. Others barely survive a single storm. But there are few, very few, who walk through hell, who bleed, who lose everything again and still rise. They are called the chosen ones. Not because they are perfect, not because they are privileged, but because they are destined. Life tries to break them. People try to curse them. The enemy throws every weapon. But something always pulls them back up. If you've ever wondered why you keep surviving what others don't, why you're still standing after the wreckage, it's because you were chosen for something greater than survival. You were chosen for transformation. Before we dive into these 9 divine reasons, take a moment. If this message finds you at the right time, if you've been carrying pain, doubt, or confusion and this resonates, type 1111 in the comment section. That number is no coincidence. It's a sacred alignment, a portal for blessings, synchronicity, and divine confirmation. And if you haven't already, subscribe and join this soul tribe of spiritual warriors, visionaries, and survivors. You're not here by mistake. You're here because you're meant to awaken. 1. Because their pain has purpose. The chosen one doesn't suffer randomly. Nothing in their life is without meaning, not even the darkest nights, the longest betrayals, or the loneliest failures. Every heartbreak becomes a doorway. Every death becomes a message. Every disappointment is a divine detour. They are enrolled in a sacred curriculum where the tuition is suffering, but the graduation is awakening. What breaks others becomes their initiation into spiritual mastery. Their soul recognizes that pain is a kind of language, a coded message sent from the higher realms to awaken the dormant power within. While the world collapses under suffering, the chosen one kneels in it like sacred ground and listens deeply. Others scream at the sky, "Why me?" hoping to be heard. But the chosen one, even with tears streaming down their face, closes their eyes and whispers, "What is this teaching me?" That small question unlocks everything. That is the moment the wound becomes wisdom, the pain becomes prophecy. Pain is not punishment in their life, it is preparation, it is initiation. They are not being broken, they are being built. And that is why they survive. Because their agony is not random, it is revelatory. 2. Because they are spiritually protected. Many chosen ones walk through life with stories that seem unbelievable. Times they should have died, moments that seemed like pure luck, times the odds were stacked against them and still, somehow, they made it through. What they often realize later is that these weren't coincidences. They were divine interventions. Invisible hands were guiding them, shielding them from the bullet they didn't see, from the betrayal they narrowly avoided, from the trap that almost caught them. Some call it instinct, others call it fate, but chosen ones know it for what it is: spiritual protection. This isn't about being perfect or religious, it's about being marked by purpose, marked by ancestral blessings, marked by divine contracts written before they were born. There are forces that fight for them, not just angels but the spirits of those who came before them and left behind prayers in their blood. What others call luck, the chosen one knows as alignment. What others chalk up to coincidence, they recognize as orchestration. They walk through hell and don't get burned because something walks with them, always. That's why they survive. Because even when the world forgets them, heaven remembers them. 3. Because their mission is incomplete. The chosen one cannot be taken until their divine task is fulfilled. That's a law written not in books, but in the blueprint of their soul. Even in their lowest moments, when depression eats away at their will to live, when exhaustion tries to steal their breath, when they beg for release, there's something deeper that won't let them go. A covenant, a divine agreement. Before they ever took their first breath, they agreed to carry something. Some are called to break the curses that have haunted bloodlines for generations. Others are called to heal those whose society forgets. Some are meant to awaken thousands with a single sentence. Whatever the mission, it anchors them, it sustains them, it keeps them alive. And even if they don't fully understand it yet, it pulses inside them like a second heartbeat. They may not have clarity, but they have conviction. And that conviction whispers in the background of every breakdown, "You are not done yet." That's why they survive. Because their life isn't theirs alone. It's a vessel for transformation, for truth, for healing. And until that vessel pours out what it was meant to carry, They cannot be taken. Death knows it. Heaven knows it. Deep down, so do they. 4. Because they learn from what breaks them. For most people, suffering is an end, a collapse, a signal to give up. But for the chosen one, it's a beginning. Every painful experience becomes a book they study, a puzzle they solve. They don't just cry in the dark, they listen. They don't just survive trauma, they sit with it, talk to it, learn its patterns, decode its secrets. Pain becomes their professor. Wounds become their wisdom. They understand that suffering is not just a torment to be endured, but a key to be turned. While the world rushes to numb itself, the chosen one dares to feel deeply, to stay in the discomfort long enough to let it reveal its message. What seems to destroy them is really refining them. They alchemize trauma into transformation, grief into greatness. They are the emotional scientists of the spiritual world, turning chaos into clarity. They ask not for ease but for depth, not for escape but for insight. This willingness to be broken open again and again without becoming bitter is what gives them strength beyond explanation. Others avoid the fire. The chosen walk into it and emerge with diamonds. That is why they survive, because they don't just heal, they integrate, and that integration becomes power. 5. Because they're guided by a higher intelligence. Where others live by reaction, the chosen one moves by revelation. There is a mysterious guidance that whispers through their dreams, through their gut feelings, through signs and synchronicities. They may not always understand it, but they feel it. A higher intelligence communicates with them in symbols, in delays, in doors that slam shut and windows that swing open. They'll pause for no reason, only to later discover they avoided danger. They'll feel uneasy around someone and later realize that soul meant them harm. This isn't paranoia, it's perception. The chosen one is connected to something beyond logic, a divine GPS that reroutes them towards safety, growth, and fulfillment. And even when they disobey it and suffer, they learn. They tune in more. They become fluent in the language of the unseen. This connection doesn't make their life easier, but it makes it protected, guided, directed. They may not know the map, but they trust the compass. That's why they survive. Because they are not walking alone, they are being walked. Every step forward, no matter how unsure, is part of a greater choreography authored by the divine. 6. Because they can carry what others cannot. Chosen ones were not selected for comfort, they were selected for capacity, emotional capacity, mental endurance, spiritual depth. Life places burdens on their shoulders that would collapse most people. And yet, they keep standing. Not because they are superhuman, but because their soul has been tempered by lifetimes of preparation. There is a quiet might in them, forged in the crucible of hardship. They cry in silence, they break in private, but they rise in public, not because they're trying to impress, but because they must. Their very existence is resistance. Where others crumble under pressure, the chosen are refined. They don't just survive the fire, they become the fire. There's a spiritual gravity to them, a presence that holds space for others even when no one holds space for them. This strength confuses people. It looks like arrogance, but it's really anointing. It looks like stubbornness, but it's really sacred resilience. That's why people look at them and ask, "How are you still here?" The answer is simple. They were built for this, not with fragile flesh, but with divine flame. And flame doesn't fold under pressure, it rises. 7. Because their story is meant to save others. A chosen one's survival is not an isolated event, it is a sacred ripple. Their life is not just a personal journey, it is a public testimony. Every scar they carry, every failure they rose from, every night they thought they'd never see the morning, becomes someone else's roadmap. They live through storms, so they can later guide others to shelter. They bleed so that others may heal. Their pain is not in vain, it is sacred currency. Their voice, once silenced by suffering, becomes a song of freedom for those still enslaved by shame. That's why the enemy couldn't destroy them, that's why death missed them, because their life was meant to echo. Their presence is proof that survival is possible. And in a world addicted to image, they show the beauty of authenticity. People don't just admire them, they need them. not for perfection, but for permission. Permission to heal, permission to hope. That's why the chosen one keeps surviving. Because someone out there is waiting for their story to feel less alone in their own. And when the chosen speaks, it's not just words, it's resurrection. That's divine purpose. That's why they remain. 8. Because they have been here before. Many chosen ones walk this earth with a gaze that is older than their body, a soul that stretches far beyond the limits of this single lifetime. They are old souls, not in metaphor, but in memory. This is not their first incarnation, and deep down, they know it. That's why they are often misunderstood, even as children. Why they feel ancient sadness without a clear source. Why they sense people's intentions before a word is spoken. They carry echoes of lifetimes, wisdom earned through centuries of suffering, sacrifice, service, and silence. Their pain is layered, not just from this life, but from battles fought in realms and timelines that modern language cannot describe. And yet, with each return to this realm, they have brought back resilience. With every death, they gained perspective. With every rebirth, they refined their purpose. That is why they do not panic when others do. That is why their calm in crisis feels supernatural. Because they have seen this before. They have lost everything and rebuilt. They have faced darkness and chosen light. They have tasted death and returned with vision. So when this life becomes heavy, they do not collapse, they remember. And that remembrance is what makes them indestructible. What confuses others, their knowing, their stillness, their strange familiarity with pain, is just evidence of the many lifetimes they've walked through the fire and came back bearing light. This life? It's not the end, it's just another climb, another assignment, another step in the soul's eternal ascent. 9. Because God won't let go. At the center of every chosen one's journey, beneath the trauma, the strength, the silence, and the tears, is something immovable, God's grip. It is the invisible hand that holds them when all else fails. The reason they survive is not always because they are unbreakable, but because they are held. Held by a love that doesn't let go. Even when they run. Even when they curse the sky in despair. Even when they feel faithless, hopeless, and hollow. Still they are not abandoned. When they fall, it is God who lifts them. When they hide, it is God who finds them in the dark corners of their soul. When they prepare to drown in their grief or vanish in their silence, it is grace that finds a way in. Not always loudly, sometimes quietly, in the form of a kind stranger, a line in a book, a sudden peace in the chaos, or a whisper in the wind that says, "Keep going." This divine loyalty cannot be broken. It does not withdraw when they are weak. It does not waver when they are lost. In fact, it gets louder, more persistent. Because God does not choose and then forget. He chooses and commits. The chosen one survives because their life is not merely a product of strength. It is a masterpiece of mercy. Every time they want to give up, heaven leans in and says, "Not yet." Every time they believe it's over, divinity declares it's only beginning. That's why they're still here. Not because they've never let go, but because God never did. If you've made it this far, it's not by accident. Something in your spirit knows this truth. You've felt the storms, you've stood on the edge, and still, you rise. Not because it's easy, but because you were made to endure. You are not like the rest. You were chosen, not to be perfect, but to persevere. This is the Chosen Seer channel. Type 1111 in the comments if this message hit your spirit. Let the divine know you received it. And don't forget to subscribe for more messages that nourish your soul and remind you, you were born for this. You keep surviving because you're not finished yet. And the world still needs what you carry. Thank you for watching.